Hello and welcome to Hughes of the World. It's episode 14 this week. We've been powering through since the beginning of the year, and today we are up to Bangladesh. B for Bangladesh in southern Asia, or South Asia, the Indian subcontinent, if you will. So, first of all, big hello to everyone. We've got Vincent Prail here saying good morning, good evening even, if I could read. We've got Christian saying good evening, everyone. That's more like it. Pegasus, good evening all. Cricket Everett is already there before I came on with a $10 super chat saying, glad you're keeping up with these episodes. Cheers, Cricket. You absolutely rock. For those who don't know, Cricket came with me on my mad mission to try and visit every country in Europe in 3 weeks. Back in 2017, and that was the mission that failed because it turned out after the event that Turkey and Cyprus were not part of Europe that the Guinness World Records people wanted me to go to. They didn't want me to go to Cyprus, they didn't want me to go to Turkey because they weren't part of Europe. Anyway, listen, I didn't get the record, but it's fine because I've got two other records. I've got the record for the fastest journey to every country in the world without flying, which I don't think anyone's going to beat anytime soon. And also the most countries visited in 1 year without flying, which is 133. If you're interested, we've got MMTB 1972. Hello, couch surfers. Oh yeah. We've got Joe Hay saying hi there. We've got Thomas Page saying good evening and welcome to the Bangladesh, sir. Welcome. Good evening. We've got Buddy saying evening. Today's subject: when India had Bangladexit. Oh, it's clever, but It's good, but it's not quite right, which I'll go on to in the history section of this episode. These episodes need to be required viewing in geography classes around the world, says Thomas Stolt. I probably swear too much. I don't know. Adrian Wilson, hello, Graham Hughes and Hughes of the World. Lee Corn says hello. All right, Lee. We've got Duke Vengeance. Sorry, I had the volume down. What? Oh, sorry. Do you want me to shout? Hi, Graham. Ooh, curious flag like the Japanese but change colour. Yes. It is the Japanese flag, except the background's green instead of white. Let's get onto the flag, actually. So, first of all, Bangladesh, right? This is the flag. Obviously, that's supposed to be a circle. It shouldn't be all jaunty, but I've redrawn all the flags of the world in sort of jaunty vector graphics using straight lines to make them look a bit more interesting than they normally look, because most flags of the world are really, really boring. They're just like a tricolor going one way or the other. Anyway, but this is Bangladesh's one. And the annoying thing about the Bangladesh flag is that the red circle in the middle, which represents the sun, isn't in the middle. It's slightly to the left. It's slightly to the pole of the flagpole. Now, the official reason for this is because it looks in the middle when it's up the flagpole, which it doesn't. I've been to Bangladesh and I looked at the flag, up a flagpole. It didn't look like it was in the middle. It looked like it was slightly off to one side. And if you're like me and you get upset about things like kerning, the space between letters and stuff like that, and inconsiderate fonts like Comic Sans or Papyrus, it just irks me. Anyway, when I was there, someone told me, when I inquired about why the disc in the middle of the flag wasn't quite in the middle, he said, because it's a reminder that only Allah is perfect. And I went, okay, can't argue with that. I think that's a better reason than this kind of optical illusion, magic eye thing going on. Well, it's not quite in the middle, but it looks in the middle up a flagpole, which, no, not going for that. Okay, who else have we got here? We've got David Huado. We've got, David. We've got Parcel of Rogue, rioting in Northern Ireland, not caused by Brexit. It was the EU, Daily Express. This isn't Brexit reality, unfortunately, so I'm not going to comment on the situation in Northern Ireland. However, exclusive news. Tomorrow, on my usual 10 o'clock show, well, it's usually at 1 o'clock, I usually do Brexit reality, but this week, because the kids are off school, I've moved it to 10 o'clock, so I didn't do a Brexit reality today, and this is sort of taking the place of the Brexit reality. I'm doing this anyway each week, but tomorrow I will be joining Maximilian Robespierre on his live chat, going out to the nation. So we will be discussing Northern Ireland. Obviously, Max himself is Irish, so yeah, it's a topic very close to his heart, and we'll be dissecting that tomorrow night. But back to Bangladesh. So population of Bangladesh is 163 million or thereabouts. That makes it the 8th most populous country in the world and and the most densely populated country in the world. The only place that is more densely populated is Hong Kong, I think, and Hong Kong's not a country, so it doesn't count. The currency is the Bangladesh Laka. I'm looking in the table here, the table of money. I'm sure I've got a Bangladesh note here somewhere. I'll dig it out for you if I spot it before the end of the show. Run my hand under the table, although I don't think it works that way. So yeah, I'm going to just drop in now. Jeremy says, hello, how do from Yorkshire? Hello. Duke Vengeance says, couch surfer. I'll have you know I'm an armchair general. Oh, a lot of armchair nuclear physicists and epidemiologists and I don't know, people who wrote the Good Friday Agreements. There's a lot of people them sitting in armchairs at the moment. Funny that. Anyway, but I have actually bothered to get off my arse and go and see all these countries that I'm talking about in real life. And Bangladesh was just a border hop as part of the Odyssey expedition, but I did spend a couple of days there back in back in 2002. I spent a couple of days in Dhaka. So yes, which I'll be coming to in a moment. So that's some fast facts for you. Next, we're going to go on to the geography, which means I'm going to bring up my map. So I'm going to disappear for a moment, and you can look at a map, because maps are fun. Yay! Right, there it is. That's the map of Bangladesh. And as you can see, it's called Bangladesh. Now, if I zoom out lots and lots and lots, you will see the world eventually when Google loads up. So, right, just to get your bearings, there is the UK here. Over here is America here. And over here is Australia. There's Australia there. And here is India. This is the Indian subcontinent. And I will zoom back in. Now, the Indian subcontinent is generally taken as being Pakistan, India, Nepal, Bhutan, and Bangladesh, and possibly Sri Lanka, if you want to add Sri Lanka into that as well. You may. I'm not going to stop you. And if I zoom into Bangladesh, you will see that it's pretty much surrounded by India. They've got us surrounded. They've got us surrounded, sir. And the reason for this is because of partition, is because of what the British did, which I'll come to when I'm talking about the history. But it's important to know that Bangladesh used to be East Pakistan from 1947 to 1971. When it became semi-independent state, when it became the east part of Pakistan, it was assumed that this whole area up here along the Myanmar-Burma border would all be part of Bangladesh, and it wasn't. It was just this bit. But this area, which goes over to here, see this place called Kolkata? That's the new name for Calcutta. For those, I say new, it's about 30 years old. But that's Calcutta there. And this is called West Bengal. This, Bangladesh, used to be East Bengal. And Bengal used to be one big place. It was split down the middle and for administrative purposes by the British. And it just so happened that the people of East Bengal, there was a lot of Muslims living there, whereas West Bengal was majority Hindus. But there were other religions there as well. Anyway, so enough of the history. Let's go into the geography. So you can see these rivers that absolutely dominate Bangladesh. In fact, this delta here is the biggest delta in the world, and it is the confluence of not the confluence, wasn't it? Well, it involves the confluence. It is the Ganges River, which is called the Patna River the Padma River once it gets into Bangladesh, once it comes over the border. You can see there the Padma River, and that teams up with this river over here, the Meghna River, and this other massive river over here. Over here, which is the Brahma. Over on the Indian side, it's called the Brahmaputra River, and then when it gets to the Bangladesh side, it changes its name. But it all comes together, and it makes this massive, massive delta, which involves something like 700 odd rivers. I mean, it's a bit insane. So Bangladesh, even though it's got 163 million people living there, it's about half the size of the UK. It's bordered all around, like I said, by India or around here. But this little bit at the bottom here, along here, see this? This is where it borders with Myanmar. Okay, so you can, there's no road, there's no real way of getting across there. I believe people can cross there sometimes, but I've not met a backpacker who has managed to make that particular crossing. It seems to be shut off from the outside world a little bit. So yes, one of the more notable things, if I was doing this 5, 6, 7 years ago, I would have talked about the amount of enclaves and exclaves that Bangladesh shared with India. In fact, Bangladesh had the second most number of enclaves anywhere in the world, apart from India. And all along this border here, so this mad, jaggedy border here, all along here were loads of little, like dozens of tiny little exclaves and enclaves of India and Bangladesh. So Bangladesh is here on this side, India is on this side. And you would have zoomed in on the map here on Google, and you would have seen lots and lots of areas like this place here. Now this is, you can see it's separated from everything else. And we'll zoom in a little bit. That's Dhaka, and that is the only enclave left. That's actually a Bangladeshi exclave, which is in India, so that makes it an enclave in India or something like that. I don't know how it works, but there used to be 160 odd of these things, and in 2015 they said, listen, this is really silly, and so they got together and they basically handed over something like 100 enclaves from India to Bangladesh and 50 the other way, something like that. It was insane. Anyway, this is the only enclave left now. That's the only one, just there on the border. All the rest have been handed back over, and the reason for that was partition. It was the British. They partitioned India. You got to understand that the British were in the British were in the region of India for 300 years. 347 years. And they left in 4 months. And so that's why the borders are a little bit crazy for Bangladesh. Obviously, river systems, as you saw on the map there. One thing that Bangladesh is it's blessed and it's cursed. It's got the most fertile land in the world, and it's got these rivers going through it. But if at the monsoon season, it's got too much water. Almost 2/3 of the country usually floods. This is each year, and then it gets whacked by these massive typhoons, cyclones that come in from the Indian Ocean, and also it can be whacked by earthquakes as well. And so it is a country that is permanently on guard for the next big thing that's going to just kind of smack into it. But as a result of it having this really fertile soil, it has got hundreds, probably thousands of different species of plant that grow there. Obviously, it's famous for spices and things. One of the big exports back in the day, and probably still today, actually, is jute, which is used to make ropes and burlap sacks and things. The whole of the delta zone, which comprises a good third of the entire country, if I go back to the map here and show you, this entire zone of the south of the country, where you can see all those little tiny rivers here, all this area is either sea level, below sea level, or at most 10 meters above sea level. So the chances of Bangladesh seeing it to the end of the century, if we don't change our ways, are quite small, actually. They're quite small, unfortunately. Now, a couple of more interesting things that we have in Bangladesh. We also have the biggest mangrove forest in the world, which are called the Sundarbans, which are around here. If I change this, and that's the last area where you can still find a Bengal tiger, and that's the biggest literal, which means by the sea, not literal as in I'm literally telling the truth. That's the biggest literal mangrove forest in the world. Also worthy of note is over, I think, here near Chittagong is the longest uninterrupted beach in the world. It stretches for 75 miles, which is quite insane. I don't know if you can see it here. I think you can see it. I don't know if you can see that little strip. You can see that little strip. But yeah, it just goes on forever. It's basically 75 miles of beach, which is kind of cool. It's kind of cool. So what else have we got here? We have what I was saying about the flash floods and the problems there. So a full 80%. I don't know why the word Bangladesh has gone red there, but maybe I've made Bangladesh angry. I don't know. But a good 80% of the country is prone to flooding. There's some hills around these parts here and along here, but generally speaking, it's a very flat country, very low. It is the Asian equivalent of the Netherlands, I guess. But at the moment, we're seeing over 200,000 people lose their homes every year because of flooding, which is pretty bad. And things are getting worse, obviously, as the tides rise and global warming takes its toll. Oh, I got a super chat there from Akbar Ali while I was looking at the map. Thank you. $4 there. Don't forget St. Martin Islands, Bangladesh. Okay, I'll try not to. Good evening, Graham. I'm late again. Apologies. Hopefully everyone's doing well. No need to apologise. Alex, it's good to have you here. Christian Cruz says Bangladesh is so low that it will be the first catastrophic collapse of a major country due to climate change. Almost certainly. Miss your cheat sheet, Graham. What's the typical food in Bangladesh, darling? Don't say fish and chips. It's curry. It's what we know as curry. Which I'll come to the cuisine because that's quite an important part of all this. But if you don't mind, I'm going to head on because it's 20 minutes past now and try and give you, in a nutshell, the history of Bangladesh. So, Bangladesh, obviously, as I said, it's a country of extremes, turmoil and peace, and prosperity and poverty. It's got this. It's had internal war. It's had external war. It's been invaded. It's been involved in the fall and the rise of mighty empires. It's generally been in the middle of everything that's going on, in a way that you could say about Afghanistan. Except more things grow in Bangladesh, and there's a lot more people in Bangladesh as well. The earliest mention of the area, Bengal, was probably in the 9th century BC Hindu epic, the Mahabharata, which tells of Prince Bhima's conquest of eastern India. In the 6th century BC, the Aryan culture spread eastward from the Indus River in Pakistan to dominate most of what we now know as India. In 325 BC, Alexander the Great turned up. He had already conquered Persia. He had conquered Afghanistan. He had taken Roxanne as his wife. He got over the Khyber Pass. He'd gone down into India. And basically, it was the guys down in what is now Bangladesh who sent out some troops to meet him. When I say troops, I mean elephants. By elephants, I mean 4,000 frickin' war elephants. 4,000 war elephants? I mean, okay, maybe they're exaggerating. I don't know. But seriously, 4,000 war elephants versus an exhausted Greek army or Macedonian army that had come all the way over from Greece, led by Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great left India, didn't even put up a fight. He just looked at it and he went, 4,000 war elephants. Are you kidding me? I'm like, no, that's what they've got. 4,000 war elephants. I'm out of here. See ya. Bye. And Alexander turned around and he walked back. So it does actually sort of negate that great line from Die Hard where Hans Gruber says, when he saw the breadth of his domain, Alexander wept, for there were no more worlds to conquer. Yeah, there were. He never got to Bangladesh. So, whatever. There was 4,000 frickin' elephants in the way. Maybe they're exaggerating. I don't know. Maybe. They probably were. Okay, so moving swiftly on. He left India, never to return. Obviously, Alexander the Great died when he was like 33 or 34 years old. And then the next big person to come along, it was the Emperor Asoka. Asoka, I hope I'm saying that right. Who converted to Buddhism in 62 BC, converted the country, what it was then, to Buddhism, and founded the Mauryan Empire. Now, the Mauryan Empire basically spanned what we now regard as what British India was. So it was the biggest chunk of India to be under one ruler until the British turned up and started mucking around thousands of years later. 2,000 years later. No, not quite. 1,500, 600 years later. Under this rule, they kept going until I think 1884 BC, AD. I think. I might be getting my dates wrong here. I'm going to have to check it afterwards, and I'll edit. I'll do a new edit where I get the dates right. It wasn't until the 4th century AD that northern India, including including Bengal, was once again united under one imperial rule, and this time under the Guptas, who were Buddhists. So more Buddhists coming in. Buddhism was a huge thing in Bangladesh for a good 1,000 years. So, well, more than 1,000 years. So there are still remains of lots of Buddhist temples and ruins and things that you can go and visit when you are in Bangladesh, which is kind of cool. 9 words from Drew is saying Ashoka. Thank you, Drew. I'm glad you're here to correct my mispronunciations of everything. And then in the 6th century AD, there was the Gauda Empire in Bengal. They were subsequently overthrown by some warrior king. And then he was there until the place fell into anarchy in the 8th century. Buddhism started going into a bit of decline. Then came the Pala dynasty, P-A-L-A, Pala dynasty, which lasted from the 8th century till the 12th century. They got conquered. Conquered, and they continued the royal patronage of Buddhism, but they were politically, they tolerated the Hindus. So if you were Hindu, you weren't persecuted under their rule, apparently. And then entered the Muslim period. So the Muslim period started a lot later than everywhere else. Well, not everywhere, but a lot of places that became Muslim. And this is an interesting thing. Because if I was to, again, why not go back to the map here? I just want to quickly show you this and go to this view. Now, if I zoom out, here's the thing that you need to know. So there's Bangladesh there. This country up here is China. So they're not Muslim. Bhutan's not Muslim. Nepal's not Muslim. India's not Muslim. Sri Lanka's not Muslim. Burma's not Muslim. Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam is not Muslim. Malaysia is. And Pakistan is. So Bangladesh is really on its own because, you look at Malaysia and you go, well, it's next to Indonesia down here, and Indonesia is Muslim as well. Although it does have some islands that are different religions, but generally speaking, the de jure religion there is Islam. So Bangladesh is really, really out on its own. And this will become more important later when I start talking about the partition of India and what went down. Anyway, so where was I? Yeah, so in 1199, a guy called Muhammad Bakhtiar from Turkestan, so Central Asia, he took Bengal. He took Bengal with only 20 men. 20? I need to do some more research on this because it sounds like a fantastic story. I just love the idea that he took an entire region with 20 men. What did he do? How did he do it? We need to know. Apparently he had a clever strategy. That's all that's written in my notes. Damn it. Anyway, he brought the area under the Sultanate of Delhi, which was Muslim at the time. The armies of Timur, or Tamerlane, was invaded in 1398, I think. And then there was an influx of Muslims from Central Asia, Persians from Shiraz. And this was sort of the golden era of the Muslim rule of Bangladesh and all of North India, to be honest with you. And so you had the cities developed, palaces, forts, mosques built, mausoleums, gardens. This is the era that the Taj Mahal was built, the Agra Fort and Delhi Fort and all that kind of stuff. And then in 1520, the Afghans turned up. In 1526, the Sultanate of Delhi was overthrown by Babar, who I think came from Afghanistan, actually, but originally. He was actually a descendant, get this, he was the descendant of both Timur, right, and Genghis Khan, the two baddest MFs in the whole of the region, who are famous for basically going everywhere and just raping and pillaging. They were the Dothraki of their day. And they raised a lot of cities to dust that would not bow down to them. They're like, oh, you won't bow down to us? Well, take this then. Pretty ruthless. The Mughal Empire, the Mughal Empire then arose, and this was the golden age. However, with this new prosperity came European interest, and this is where it all started, probably going a bit downhill for poor old what is now Bangladesh. The Portuguese came to Goa in 1510. They started trading in Chittagong in 1536. The Dutch followed in 1615. That's 115 years later. 105 years later. The British in 1651, and the French eventually got there in 1674. These four countries all vied for influence, but it was the British East India Company that prevailed, and it was granted a royal charter by Queen Elizabeth in 1601, and it was given a monopoly of British trade with India. They set up a fortified trading fort, a trading post, but it was a fort in Calcutta, now Kolkata, and they traded. The cotton, wool, silk, sugar, saltpeter, you name it. They trucked along for many years being traders. They were trading. They were just there to trade, weren't they? And they weren't too interested in local politics, apparently. They just let the Indian people do what they like. We'll just trade with them. But then Clive of India came along. And what happened was Clive of India became head of the company and effectively became the ruler of Bengal, Orissa, and Bihar in about 1759. 1757, I think it was. The year before, there was the notorious black hole of Calcutta, where the local people in Calcutta had had enough of this British shit. So they basically rounded everyone up and put them in a room for the night, where being British and a bit wet, I guess, a lot of them died. And it was called the Black Hole of Calcutta. And the British used that as an excuse to go in hard on India and basically take over. And that was the real beginning of the Raj. The Raj just means sovereignty, funnily enough, something that British people are very, very interested in. The Indian Raj basically means the Indian sovereignty that was actually British. And the British put in a load of puppet rulers around the country called Nawabs, who basically just did what they were told by the British. And if they got out of line, they'll probably be killed or tortured or something. It wasn't all great for the people of India. Although, actually, not defending the British here, I'm not. The life for some Hindus got better, but the life for a lot of Muslims got worse for various reasons. One of the things they did was the British would give the admin roles to Hindus. They wouldn't give them to Muslims. And actually, a lot of Muslims would reject these roles even if they were offered to them, because they just disagreed with the British being there. Which is fair enough, because the British were from thousands of miles away, didn't speak the language, didn't share their customs. I know a few people, they would say, went native. They went native because they married. They fell in love with someone from India and married and settled down and got into the whole spirituality of India. It's pretty contagious when you're there. I've got to say that the whole feeling of of India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, that sort of religions everywhere, belief, these rituals, these ceremonies that people do day in, day out, and it becomes quite intoxicating, I guess. But yeah, so the British basically bought the establishment. They bribed, killed anyone who got in their way, and they effectively had a feudal system running with the British in charge of it. And they had revenue collectors that were basically working for the British. All of them pretty much were Hindus rather than Muslims. And this set things up for problems in the future. The British were really great at divide and rule. They loved doing this. They would go somewhere, they will find that one tribe opens their egg at the big end and the other tribe that hits their egg at the top end, but they lived in harmony for years, and the British would accentuate whatever differences there were, or they'll put them all in one country together. So you get the situation like you've got in Nigeria, where the entire north of the country is pretty much Muslim, the entire south of the country is pretty much Christian, and they don't really get on. And people all vote along religious lines. So all the Christians vote for the Christian candidate, and all the Muslims vote for the Muslim candidate. And that's a result of the British meddling, drawing borders, putting tribes together that shouldn't be put together, and splitting tribes up that lived together harmoniously for years before the Brits turned up. Many, like I said, many Muslims refuse to cooperate with the Raj because they're just like, this is none, and I've got some sympathy with that. But by the end of the 19th century, Bengal, which at the time included Calcutta, so it was what's now Bangladesh and West Bengal, which is where Calcutta is now, comprised of 76 million people. That was 120 odd years ago. It was overpopulated then. Obviously, it's even more overpopulated now. But in 1897, there was a massive, massive earthquake that struck the region and destroyed a lot of buildings, a lot of palaces, a lot of temples, mosques, you name it. And then in 1905 was the year that Lord Curzon, who, I don't know, started the cinema chain maybe, he partitioned. He partitioned... the British love partitioning. He partitioned East Bengal from West Bengal, which was an administrative thing. But then that line became the border of Bangladesh, pretty much, with India on that side. So into the 20th century, just to dial back a little bit, the Indian National Congress formed in 1885. The following year, the India Muslim League formed. They're going to come into sharp relief very soon because we're heading full pelt into the 20th century. Now, the people of what was then British India a lot of people lived under very, very horrific conditions. There was no such thing as workers' rights or people being allowed to do things that you would think would be your right if you lived in a free country, like making your own salt. Yeah, that was illegal. This culminated, this kind of very British, we're only in it for the money and we don't care about the welfare of the people who are making this money, whether that's the people of Ireland or the people of Bangladesh or the people of Fiji or the people of Guyana. Didn't matter to the British. They just wanted the money. We just wanted the money. I'm sorry, I can't absolve myself from blame for this all that went on because, if it wasn't for the trade with India, my city of Liverpool wouldn't have been as rich and as prosperous as it was. If it wasn't for slavery, my school wouldn't have been built. So I'm still reaping the benefits of what terrible, terrible people back in the past did. Anyway, this all came to a head in 1943. And when you hear people sort of not wanting the bad parts of British history to be taught, the Bengal famine of 1943 comes up again and again, quite rightly. Over 1 million people, well in excess of 1 million people, died as a result of 2 failed seasons, harvests. This is almost 100 years to the day after the Irish potato famine, where the British did pretty much the same thing. Oh, you've got a famine? Oh, well, that's a shame. What's happening? Oh, well, you got a problem. You got a drought. Oh, so you haven't got as much food as you normally do. Well, listen, we'll just keep taking the amount of food that we normally take, and we'll just leave the rest for you. But there's not enough. Oh, well, we'll take it all then. And you can just starve. Why don't you just starve? There you go. You can starve. And this was a decision taken by Winston Churchill. So you can see why now people are looking at Churchill's legacy and saying, well, he did help win the war for Britain, the Allies. We did stand alone throughout the Battle of Britain before other countries came into the war. But you can't just look at that and then disregard the fact that he greenlit the Bengal famine. However, it was during a freaking world war. Extenuating circumstances, I know, but the Bengal famine was absolutely freaking horrific. And it ended up with millions of people streaming to the cities because there was no food in the provinces and basically dying in droves. And this set the tone for much of the 20th century for poor old Bengal and Bangladesh. Basically, all of the grain, all of the food that was being made in Bangladesh was being shipped out of the country for the Allied forces to feed the troops. But what this did, obviously, apart from kill a lot of people, it lost the British any last trace of respect that it had in Bengal. And it's no surprise then after the war, 1947, the British position in India was absolutely untenable. Now, the East India Company had been effectively wound up in the mid-19th century and transferred all of its power to the British Crown. And that's when Queen Victoria became Empress of India. And so this was down to Britain. It was Britain's responsibility to make sure that this country that was agitating for independence got independence in a way that was the least disruptive way that you could possibly give a country independence. So you have a transition period, perhaps lasting 5 to 10 years, when you make the changes that have got to be made. You make sure that you've got a civil service in place that's working. You make sure that you have a form of democracy that is working. And then you say, okay, right, that's it. Pull the flag down. We're off. See you later. Of course, we didn't do that. We left a country that we had been mucking around in and ruling over for hundreds of years in 4 months. In 4 freaking months. This was Lord Mountbatten's big idea. He came in. He said, this is going to take 5 years. He said, 5 years? I've got an appointment at the golf course or something. And as a result of that, he made it 4 months. And as a result of that, we had partition. And what happened with partition is as horrible as you can imagine. I'm going to go back to the map. Here we go. Sorry. Okay. So here's the map here, just so you know what happened. You have India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. These 3 countries were once one. They were once British India. And then in August 1947, this one country became 2. Pakistan became West Pakistan and Bangladesh became East Pakistan. Now, the problem is, as you can probably see, that this country is on the other side of India to this country. And wouldn't you believe it? They're very different countries. The only thing that they shared, and the reason why they were lumped together by some British cartographer who never even bothered to visit the borders that he drew, was because they were both Muslim. So it would be a bit like, let me think, saying, well, England is a nominally Christian country, so we're going to tie that with the Philippines. And everyone goes, what? So we're going to have one country, and it's going to be the United Kingdom and the Philippines, okay? But we speak different languages, yeah. And we have completely different cultures, yeah. And we have completely different cuisines, yeah. And we don't really get on with each other. Oh well, never mind. Make it work. Unfortunately for East Bangladesh, East Pakistan, which would become Bangladesh, it wasn't very well treated by the West Pakistan government. Well, the government was supposed to be the whole country, but it was dominated by West Pakistan. Any overseas aid that came, they basically took. In partition, 1 million people died. And then after partition, you had this new country, Pakistan, split in two. And just a few years into this new regime, the dickheads in charge of West Pakistan decide, in their infinite wisdom, to make the people of East Pakistan speak Urdu. The people of East Pakistan don't speak Urdu. They've never spoken Urdu. It's not a language that is on their radar. They don't speak it. I mean, just... So essentially, this led to riots in the 50s, in which were quelled by the West Pakistani government. Well, I'm saying it was all one country. So effectively, it was the big part of a country just sort of picking on the little part, which really got up the noses of people in Bangladesh, as you can possibly imagine. I mean, the idea that you were going to force these people who didn't speak this language to all speak this language, and you're talking about tens of millions of people changing their language overnight. It's like, imagine you woke up and the government just said, right, you're going to learn Danish. You got to speak in Danish now. I'm like, hardly anyone here speaks Danish. Oh, well, going to be Danish. That's just the way it is. And so obviously people kicked back against this really, really quite strongly and quite rightly. And there were numerous protests all the way through the 50s and 60s, and basically it all came to a head when the Awari League, which was this league set up, this political party set up to represent the people of East Pakistan, gained 167 of the 313 seats in the National Assembly of Pakistan. Now, technically, they should have taken over the government at that because they had a majority. But they were the biggest party by far. And the leaders, Pakistan's leaders, decided to do something about this. So the president of the country put on hold the opening of the National Assembly. So effectively stopped Parliament from meeting because the democratically elected people in the Parliament, there were too many of these damn Bengal people there. Grrr. So essentially, this went to shit. This was in 1971 in March. The one of the main leaders of the now becoming very much an independent struggle. It was a struggle to get more relevance, get more say in the National Assembly, get more say in what happened in the country, get more aid money that was coming into Pakistan, but into West Pakistan, didn't seem to be getting into East Pakistan. And there was a war. I mean, and it was horrific. And 1 million people died. You're going to hear this a lot. And 1 million people died. It's pretty horrific. From March to December of 1971, this war raged. And it was incredibly bloody. The people who were targeted the most were intellectuals. Sound familiar? Our remaining universities, Khmer Rouge. Let's go after the intellectuals. That's what they did in China as well under Chairman Mao. Go after the intellectuals and Hindus. And there was a systematic slaughter. And there was rape used as a weapon of war. There was 10 million people fled to refugee camps, and it was pretty horrific. However, on the 3rd of December 1971, the Pakistani government lost their freaking minds and did a preemptive attack against the Indian military. And India was having none of this, and India came into the war on the side of East Pakistan. So this was a Hindu country, well, majority Hindu country. It's supposed to be cross-denominational, but let's not split hairs. A majority Hindu country coming to the aid of a Muslim country against another Muslim country. Yeah, crazy, I know. The war lasted another 2 weeks, if that. And within 2 weeks, the West Pakistan had completely surrendered, capitulated, and the independent nation of Bangladesh was heralded as the 139th new country in the world. 139th country in the world. There's currently 193 members of the United Nations. There's been a few since then, but that was 1971. Ta-da! Bangladesh. A country born into absolute chaos, shattered by war, ruined economy, disrupted communications. The infrastructure was just smashed. And Sheikh Mujib, who helped make this whole thing happen, was assassinated. He was killed in a military coup just a few years later. There was absolute mayhem. There was another leader, and then he was taken out in a coup, and then there was another leader, and he lasted 4 days before being assassinated. And by 1981, by 1982, they managed to go through 11 heads of state. So in just 11 years, 11 heads of state? No, 7. 7 heads of state since independence. So in 11 years, they went through 7 heads of state. And a lot of those people who were head of state died, so the next one could step in. Which leads us up to pretty much the modern era, I guess, in Bangladesh. I remember my first memory of Bangladesh as a small child was learning about the floods there. They had horrific floods in the 1980s. I remember that. I remember being taught by my teacher at the time that one of the problems was the fact that a lot of trees had been cut down, and the trees had held the mud into the hills, and basically without the trees, which had been they'd been chopped down centuries ago, but they were chopped down to grow crops. The mud just slid into the rivers and pushed them up. And even though I was only about 6 or 7 at the time, whatever, it still freaked me out. There came 2 big sort of parties. There was the BNP, which is the Bangladesh Nationalist Party. And then there was the aforementioned, I want to say this right, hang on, where is it in my notes? I've lost. Professional. Just give me a minute. Maybe I'll go back to your comments. I just want to make sure that I've written it down right, because I think I said it wrong before. Oh, sod it. Doesn't matter. The Awari movement. The Awari movement? The Awari movement. I think it was the Awari movement. I'm just going to do a find on... Oh, no, sod it. I'm not going to do that. Okay, so basically the more sort of up-to-date history of Bangladesh has been one of these 2 big political parties, the Awari movement, which I'm probably saying incorrectly, and the BNP. And then we've seen a lot of turmoil where we've seen... Awami. Yeah, I'm saying it right. Awami. So the Awami party and the BNP, which have been at each other's throats for the last 30 years or so. And usually the politics goes from one to the other. They seem to have quite an extreme hatred for each other. It's probably not healthy. They keep on accusing each other of rigging elections and trying to mount coups and things like that. But on top of this, I mean, there's been some disasters in Bangladesh that are not just to do with politics or geography. The fact that it is in a zone that gets whacked by a lot of very inclement weather. It's very low-lying country. In 2013, there was the Rana Plaza, which collapsed, which led to 1,000 factory workers crushed to death and a further 2,500 injured. And in more recent years, we've seen an influx of Rohingya Muslims fleeing from Myanmar, fleeing from Burma, where they're under persecution from crazy Buddhists who want to kill them for some reason. And a lot of them have fled into Bangladesh, and now there's millions of hundreds of thousands of Rohingya Muslims living in Bangladesh as refugees. This often happens. The poorest countries in the world often are the ones that have to deal with refugees more than the rich countries that can't be asked. More of a fun story, I guess. Well, that's not really fun. In 2016, the Bangladesh Central Bank suffered the biggest heist in human history, I think. Over £100 million was stolen. Most going to the Philippines. A fifth of it went to Sri Lanka. And so far, only 18 million has been recovered. It's still one of the poorest countries in the world. It recently came 145th out of 176 in a ranking of least corrupt countries. And it's still got an amazingly fast-growing economy. It's blessed by a lot of things when it comes to geography, but also it's cursed by a lot of things when it comes to geography. It's blessed by things when it comes to history, and it's cursed by things when it comes to history. However, the situation today, Bangladesh does get on all right with India. We saw earlier about the enclave exchange, which went down fairly smoothly. You've also seen the relations with Pakistan have got better than they were, obviously. I mean, they were pretty bad for a while. The relations with Burma, with Myanmar, haven't really soured that much, which is kind of surprising because isn't what's been going on recently. But Bangladesh seems to try and keep quite cordial with its neighbours. And it has these huge industries, like the textiles industry, which Bangladesh, you look at the labels in most of your clothes, they're probably made in Bangladesh, which is great for the economy of Bangladesh, but it's also not great because the situation that the workers are forced to work in, as we saw with the collapse of the factory in 2013. The conditions that people are forced to work in and the pay they get is a pittance. And so the Bangladesh has still got a long way to go, but it does seem to be getting there. And I do want to lead this as a sort of positive story about a country that has suffered more than most. I know every country's probably suffered things in the past, obviously, and I'm not dismissing them. I'm not trying to say that they're not as bad, but Bangladesh in particular does seem to be kind of a very unfortunate place in history, and I want to see it succeed. When I went to Bangladesh, the people I met were just the most friendly people that I could possibly hope to meet. After coming from North India, where you get lots of touts, you get lots of people following you around, and it gets quite annoying. People were nice. They had a conversation with you, not because they wanted something out of you, but because they wanted to know why you were there and what you want, what you wanted, rather than what they wanted to sell you. So yeah, I mean, I like Bangladesh, and I wish it well, and I just hope that the countries of the world can stop taking the piss when it comes to textiles. Stop taking the piss when it comes to the breaking of ships. Lots of ships are broken. You know that Long Beach that I was talking about earlier, the 75-mile Long Beach near Chittagong. It's got the northern end. It's got a shipbreaking yard. It's absolutely massive. It's absolutely huge, and a lot of unscrupulous cargo ship owners, they send these ships off to these breaking places where there's no health and safety, there's no one looking after anyone, it's all every man for himself pretty much, and it's horrific. I mean, people go, oh, health and safety, like it's a big joke in the West, but seriously, people die every week on these ships because they're really, really dangerous things to be taken apart. It's a really dangerous job. You can fall, you can chop your leg off, so many things to go wrong on a ship, and that's when it's at sea. Never mind when you're trying to take it apart with a welding torch. So I'm going to just jump back into the messages before I hit the food culture getting there and away and other things. I have got Itchy Back. It's BCE, before Common Era, sorry. I missed my E's. Graham, what is the most romantic country you have been? Will you take me? Kisses. Most romantic country. Probably Italy. I think that this is because I've been traveling around the Middle East for a good few months, and I've been traveling around Africa, and then the Middle East, and then I was in Italy because I had to get down to Tunisia, and there's a Grimaldi ferry which goes from Sicily down to Tunisia, and I wanted to get on it. And to go to a country after spending all this time in Africa, spending all this time in the Middle East, where young people were holding hands and kissing on the street, and I'm like, this is wonderful. Oh, love is in the air, you know. It's like, so yeah, I'll probably say Italy. I don't know. Anyway, Paris is pretty romantic. Has anyone else's Facebook gone off? Oh God, sorry, Gaz. I'm fine, Daffy. Just watched the TV news in Spain. Burning cars in Northern Ireland. Don't know what to do. Yeah. Daffy says the name Bangladesh is made up of two words: Bangla, the native name of the Bengal language, and Desh, meaning country. Yeah. The country of the Bangla speakers. Brian Hennessy says Dublin is safe, but Belfast is in the occupied part of Ireland. Nice way of putting it. Andy McAvoy says, all in the chat, hello. The world is falling apart. Yeah, I know. Duke Vengeance, I don't really know the history a lot around that area, so this is good to listen to. You and me too. You and me both. No, I know a little bit. Yes, Daffy, we need to follow the Madonna song message and keep it together. So Daffy's saying, Daffy, my name is from North Wales, but oddly Liverpool is our capital, latter being a common joke, indeed. The Bengal Delta, located in the coastline of Bangladesh, is the largest river delta in the world, I think. Yes, it is. And it's bigger than the delta of the Amazon, of the Nile. It's huge. It's vast. BNP sounds like a charming party. Well, yeah, it's the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, so it's not the BNP. Yeah. But they're marginally better than the BJP, currently run India, with Modi as the leader, who's a gobshite. 1 meter sea level rise would claim 10% of Bangladesh, says Ben Lassler. Yep. I had a bad experience with touts in India, says Gaz. Yeah, I mean, look, it's one of the reasons why Kerala was my favourite part of India. It was just people were a lot less in your face. And I don't know. I at that point of my travels around the world, I'd already spent quite a lot of time in Egypt, so I was kind of used to the whole tout thing of people wanting to speak to you to sell you stuff, and I just took that with good nature, you know, with grace. I mean, I expected it, but I think I drew the line at people trying to con me. That really pissed me off when I go to the train station and there's a guy there saying, no, you got to come with me, you got to come with me. And I'm like, no, I've got my ticket. No, you got to come with me, you got to go to this window. No. This isn't my first day. It was my first day. This isn't my first day. No, you got to come. Look, I don't need to buy a ticket from your agency. I have the ticket. It's all right. But yeah, that kind of got up my nose. Because I think I don't mind people hassling me. I don't mind people bothering me. That doesn't annoy me so much, because I always feel like, well, I'm a visitor in someone's country, and I guess they're interested in why I'm there, and I'm a sociable guy. I like it when people talk to me, generally speaking, but yeah, I draw the line where people are trying to rip me off, and that didn't happen in Bangladesh, didn't happen in southern India, down in Madras or Chennai, or in Goa even. Although, I have to say, when I was in Bangladesh, I was sitting on the back of a cycle rickshaw, and someone did try and grab my bag. And we were going past on a cycle rickshaw next to me. Oh, no, it was on a motorbike. It was on like a little scooter or whatever, little motorbike. And he reached over, and I had my camera bag, which is just a burlap sack, basically, because I didn't want people to know I had an expensive camera. But I had it on my knee, and luckily I had my hand around the loop. So when he grabbed it, he didn't actually get it. But yeah, I spent, like I said, I spent a couple of days in Bangladesh, and it was, I don't know, there were some places where you see these old buildings that were obviously beautiful in their day, and they've just been allowed to become dilapidated, because when you live in hand to mouth, looking after, you know, having a national trust, having a English heritage is not top of your agenda, and I understand that completely. You walk along the river in Dhaka, and you'll see big ships that seemingly gone up the river and then sort of fallen on their sides, just gone up the river to die. And on these ships that are lying on their sides, you see families living inside them, literally sleeping on the wall because it's at an angle, sleeping on the wall of these ships. And the pollution in Dakar was something else. It was on another level. And by that time, I kind of got acclimatized to the heat and the dust of India. I traveled around Rajasthan. And so, yeah, I was used to being in polluted cities. But Dakar was just, it was one step ahead. Sorry, the capital, I didn't even say this, the capital of Bangladesh is Dhaka with a H, whereas the capital of Senegal is Dakar with an R. So they're pronounced the same, but different. But yeah, and I distinctly remember going into a hotel that I wasn't staying in and basically bribing the concierge to let me use the bathroom facilities because it was, I don't know, 3 o'clock in the afternoon or something, and I just felt so grubby. And he said, yeah, sure, no worries. I gave him a little bit, gave him a tip. And I went in, and I remember to this day, I put shampoo on my hands, and rubbed it into my hair. And I had quite long hair then. And I remember looking at my hands, and the foam on my hands was brown. I'd had to wash that morning, and just a few hours walking around Dakar, and the soap from my hair was brown. So I had to wash my hair about 3 times to get it clean. And then I stepped back out into Dakar and got all messed up again. So yeah, a long way to go. And I do really fear for the future of Bangladesh, because it does feel like a country that is slowly getting to its feet, finding its feet. And yet it's got this existential threat hanging over it, the sword of Damocles, which is climate change. As we see in the chat, we don't need the water doesn't need to rise that much for Bangladesh to be completely swamped. Now, I tell you now, if you look at the way that the Rohingya Muslims have been treated by the authorities in Myanmar, they're not going to accept any Bangladeshi refugees. And apart from that, the entire country is surrounded by India, which obviously there's a bit of a love-hate relationship between Bangladesh and India. But India, like Bangladesh, is an overpopulated, polluted country that is still struggling to find its feet and get rid of corruption and make it so it's the people who live there all have a long, happy, healthy life. And to be swamped with up to 163 million refugees in a country that's already over 1 billion populace, the mind boggles. It's just where they're going to go. And that's something why I feel like if we can do anything in our lifetime while we're here now, we should be really, really fighting against climate change. Someone asked me what I would do if we rejoin the EU tomorrow. I said I'll change the name of my show to Climate Reality. I'll just talk about the climate, just talk about the fact that this is our one chance for the next 1,000 years, for the next 100,000 years of human habitation on this planet. And we have to not mess it up. And so when I see people like, these multi-millionaires, multi-billionaires like Jeff Bezos and like Elon Musk wasting their money on shit at the moment, I'm like, guys, can you build a rocket in 10 years' time once we've sorted out the problems that we've got with the environment? Can we just concentrate on the environment, give you money to sorting out the environment that you're spending on freaking rockets, and then in 2032, it's not that far away, you can start firing your freaking rockets into the sky again. Just this decade is critical, and it's not like we can leave it to the last minute until we do something. Andy McAvoy says, ahem, cough, Qatar. Isn't Bangladesh mostly under sea level, or am I wrong? Well, yeah, it is. I mean, Hull is technically under sea level, and obviously the Netherlands is under sea level. I mean, generally speaking, it's not It doesn't mean you're going to necessarily get flooded all the time, but it doesn't help if the sea level's going up. Don't forget the Dead Sea is like 60 meters below sea level. I mean, it's really low below sea level, but it's not like the water comes over and swamps it or whatever. How's Liz Truss getting us a trade deal? She's probably got it. I mean, they've probably just rolled it over from what it was with the EU, so that's not something that's that's bothering people too much. Alexander Campbell stayed in Dhaka overnight and there were floods. I agree about Kerala. It's my favourite part of India. They also have the highest literacy rate in India. I'll cover this when I get to India in about 17 years' time on this show. But in the 1960s, the Communist Party of Kerala got in to the local elections, the state elections. And I think it's the only case of a Communist Party actually winning power through democratic means anywhere in the world. Normally they take power. And what it meant wasn't that what was good about it wasn't the ideology of the communists, because I don't think it's a great ideology. I don't think it works. I think it's been demonstrated not to work, to be honest with you. But what was good was the people who got elected were very much of the thinking that they wanted to change things for the better. They weren't going into politics to just make money. And unfortunately, in this country, in India, in Bangladesh, all over the world, politicians go into politics for one reason: to make money. They've usually got money. They want more money, and that's why they do it. So these people got in Kerala, and they really transformed the place. And now it's got the highest literacy in the world in India, highest literacy rate. It's got the lowest infant mortality rate. Women are educated. It has less crime. It has fewer people in jail. All the metrics that you look at, positive metrics that you look at when you're looking at a country, you compare Kerala to the other states of India. Kerala nearly always comes out on top of the ones that you want to be top of. You don't want to be top of the corruption index, for instance. Ben Lasser said, just to add one more twist, India is also vulnerable to climate change and will be busy dealing with domestic displacements. That's very true. That's true. Gaz says the Earth will still be here long after us humans have gone. Yes, of course it will. It's been here for 4 billion years. It'll probably be here for another 4 billion years. That's not the point. The point is that at the moment, there are lots of people living on this planet. There's lots of animals living on this planet that I don't think deserve to go extinct because of some evil rich people who wanted to make money. So we're heading into not just a situation where it's going to be terrible to be a human on this planet. We're heading into, we're already in the middle of the biggest mass extinction since the freaking meteor took out the dinosaurs, for Christ's sake. Anyway, so quickly before I go, just a few things to say. If you want to visit Bangladesh, getting in, you do need a visa. You still need a visa. You can get one from Kolkata. So just go to the Bangladesh High Commission or whatever it's called in Kolkata. You can get a visa from there, and you can get the bus to the border. It's only a few miles down the road. It's not far at all. And get into Bangladesh that way. Like I said before, the border with Burma is pretty much closed. You can also get a visa in Delhi if you're coming down from the north. And you might be able to get one in Siliguri. I didn't check that out, so don't quote me on that one. But you do need a visa. You can't get a visa on the border, or at least you couldn't last time I went. Also, I just want to make. I just want to talk a little bit before I go, and I know I've gone over time. It's all right. I'll do a super cut of this. There's when I was talking about Bangladesh's relations with other countries, I think it's important that we talk about the relation between Britain and Bangladesh, because obviously Britain, this history of being in the region, put it mildly. And what's interesting is the way that Bangladesh has adopted some parts of Britishness, like it's mad into cricket, drives on the left, but also the way that British culture has been massively impacted by Bangladesh, because people go and they have a curry, and that's the thing in this country, and they think it's from India. But generally speaking, the curries that we eat in the UK are Bangladeshi style curries, or at least Bengal style curries. you'll notice that in India you get more flatbreads cuisine. In Bangladesh, it's more rice. Everything's rice based. Also, India uses poppy seeds and not so much in Bangladesh. Indians use cloves. Bangladeshis don't. The big difference, though, and this is what sort of affects the culture of Britain, or culinary culture, because don't forget, a chicken tikka masala was invented in Britain. It's Indian cuisine, or subcontinental Indian cuisine, but it was invented in Britain. But actually, it's more like Bangladeshi cuisine, because when you go to India, most of the curries you get are pretty damn mild. They're not mad for the spices. They're not mad for making it the hottest curry you've ever had in your life. Here you go. Have this curry. Burn your eyes out. I once ate the hottest curry in the world. In fact, oh shit, I've still got the certificate. One sec. Hell yeah. Oh, I can tell me this is the pride and joy, because I think I think this is actually over the top of my A-level certificate, so I was more proud of this. This is my Curry Hell Challenge certificate from the Rupali restaurant in Big Market in Newcastle. This is from back in 2003. There's me with Lord Harpole there, with a crown on my head. And Lord Harpole, for any readers of the Viz out there, he was the guy who used to big up the Rupali restaurant all the time. Unfortunately, he died a couple of years after that photo was taken, but I did complete the Curry Hell Challenge, and this is something that Bangladesh has brought to Britain, the idea of having super hot curries. And the reason why curries are so delightful and why you kind of get addicted to them is because your brain's a really bad chemist, and your brain will release more endorphins than you need when you get hurt a little bit. It will release the same amount of endorphins that you needed if you got hurt a lot. So when you eat something spicy, your brain thinks, shit, we're on fire, do something. So it goes, oh, release endorphins. And you go, oh, that feels great. I'm going to eat some more of this, because it's not actually doing you harm, but it just feels like it is. Also, why BDSM is so appealing to a lot of people. Curry, BDSM. Didn't expect me to end on that one, did you? Anyway, so... that's the end of the show today for Hughes the World. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for the super chats. Thanks to Alex and David and Daffyd who have been watching. Chubai there. I know an Indian who moans at Bengali saying they don't know how to cook. Well, yeah, probably. Anyway, so yeah, Andy McAvoy saying, anyone manage to connect to the rejoin Zoom meeting tonight? I couldn't. Andy, it's on Wednesdays. You missed. It was yesterday. Sorry. Did you think it was tonight? It was yesterday. It wasn't that interesting. I didn't say very much. It wasn't that interesting. I didn't say that very much. Anyway, so that wraps it up for Bangladesh for this week. Next week I will be back, and I'll be back in the Caribbean for the third time after Antigua and the Bahamas. We'll be going to Barbados. Oh yeah. So we'll be visiting Bridgetown in Barbados and getting down and having some roti, I think. But yeah, another great country. Another great country. There's so many of them, as you will learn over the following months. But thank you for watching, and I will return tomorrow at 10 o'clock for a crossover episode of Brexit Reality, which is actually going to be on Maximilian Robespierre's YouTube channel. So you're going to have to go over to Max's channel to watch the show tomorrow. But it will be something like this. But there'll be two of us talking about the problems in the troubles, the new troubles in Northern Ireland. Yay! So until then, thanks for joining me. Thanks to all my patrons. Thanks for the super chats. Thank you for being an awesome people who leave all these wonderful chats here. And I will speak to you either tomorrow or I'll catch you next week for Barbados. And until then, I'll say fair winds and following seas.